panel on depression and anxiety. My name is Monet Morgan, and I'm going to allow each member of our panel to just introduce themselves. Please give your professional capacity and a brief synopsis of your experience with depression and anxiety in your sphere. We'll start with you, Dennis.
Michael. My name is Dennis. I'm by no means expert in depression, anxiety, but I've been a nurse for about 9 years now, 8, 9 years, and I've worked in the nursing field for the past 15 years. Right now I work at a nursing home, so I work with mostly elderly people, and we do see quite a bit of that.
My name is Olaleko Brima. I'm not a nurse, but I've worked in the health field for about 14 years. So I have my master's in healthcare administration, and recently I started doing my doctorate degree, and part of my thesis is on depression and mental health. And so I'm not an expert, but I do have some understanding also from personal experience. I can definitely give some insight into that.
Hello, everyone. My name is Carla Maddox. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I've had some experience with clients and diagnosing clients with depression and anxiety. I've been a social worker for the past 20 years, so I have a little experience with depression and also some personal and family experience with loved ones who have suffered with depression.
Good afternoon. My name is Dominique Morgan. I am a personal blogger, and I actually blog about having postpartum anxiety and dealing with depression. So that's just something that I do.
And my name is Monet Morgan, licensed master social worker, actually training under this wonderful lady here to get my clinical license for therapy. And my background is working in healthcare right now in the hospital, case management. Prior to that, I was with Child Protective Services. I think I'm not amongst, by myself when I say I also have personal experiences with bouts of depression, but I think we'll get into that a little bit later. I'd like for us to start off with a definition, and if I could defer to you, Carla, or I could read from my paper, because I did print it out. But I have a definition of depression, and once I read it, I want us to talk about some of the stigma against depression and anxiety and just mental health in general that we come across in our respective fields. So depression is a mental illness that can be diagnosed when someone feels sad, including crying often, or loses interest in or takes no pleasure in daily activities for at least 2 weeks. Depression affects a person's ability to work, go to school, or have relationships with friends and family. Depression is one of the most common mental health conditions in the United States. It is an illness that involves the body, mood, and thoughts. It can affect the way you eat and sleep, feel about yourself, and think about things. In addition to that, anxiety, which is feeling overwhelmed, not being able to process your immediate surroundings, sometimes having panic attacks, is even more prevalent than depression. So that means even more people suffer, and sometimes together, suffer from anxiety than they do with depression. So what do you guys think about how these conditions are viewed in the general public, maybe even within our friends and family, and definitely in the workplace?
I think from my experience, what I see a lot is that some of the people that suffer from those things, they kind of want to hide it from their family, they kind of want to hide it from their friends, just because of the stigma that usually people just think, oh, it's just in your mind. Just get over it, you'll be okay. They don't see that as something that's actually affecting them on a more deep level than just, oh, I just don't feel like doing this today. So they try to just hide that from everybody else, which at the end it ends up being even worse because they don't talk about it, they don't deal with it how they should.
And they definitely don't seek help when they could to improve their condition.
And one thing about depression is everybody have bouts of when you feel sad, and then they take it for granted that this will pass. When depression affects a major part of your day, that's when we got issues. When you don't want to bathe, when you don't want to go to school, when you don't want to go to work, then that's something wrong with that picture. But like, what's your name, Dave? Dennis, like Dennis said, it's a stigma, and especially People don't want to admit to having depression. Then there's a chemical imbalance, and people don't seem to understand that. And like you said, they seek help. It's never too late to seek help, but we wait until someone wants to either kill themselves, or then that's when they seek help. But if we can get it before then we can always make changes.
I want to touch on something that you said, and then I'm come to you, Dominique. As far as the cause of depression, you mentioned chemical imbalance, but as far as depression, we know that there's not one single. Some people may have a chemical imbalance, but there are actually other causes, you could say, of depression. Although with a lot of mental health, we actually don't even know what actually causes it to arise, but we know that we can point to several different things. So I'm just going to list some, and then I'm going to point to Dominique, who has some personal experience with that. You have family history. We know that depression can be genetic. You have brain changes, either from trauma or from medical condition. You have brain chemistry, hormone levels, which is a big deal with women. We know that women are diagnosed with, maybe not necessarily suffer from more, but definitely more diagnosed with depression, 2 to 1 to men. You have stress. You have medical problems, which can also, they can cause and they can mimic the symptoms of depression, and also pain, both emotional and physical pain. And Dominique, if you could just talk a little bit about that, the stigma and also some of those causes.
I think a lot of times women feel, well, for myself, I felt embarrassed. Like, how can I not just focus? How can I not do normal tasks through the day without feeling this tightness in my chest? And now I'm angry because it's just a normal function of the day that I should be able to do that I can't, and I'm feeling overwhelmed with it. And so for me, once I got past the embarrassment and actually started speaking out about it, so many more women started coming out to me saying, man, I feel the same way. I just never said anything. And they suffer in this silence. And I think the more you talk about it and the more you get with other people, you'll realize that it's not just yourself that's suffering from it, but there's so many more people that are quietly dealing with these things. And so I think it's very important to get that word out. A lot of the symptoms that I was feeling when I first realized that I was having these anxiety attacks is I would get the tightness in my chest. I would get very angry. I would feel very overwhelmed. I didn't want to get out of the bed, and I didn't know what was wrong. So when I started talking to my doctor and started figuring out what was going on with myself, then I started to try to figure out things that could deal with it, because I didn't immediately want to go on medication. A lot of people don't want to deal with medicine. So I would start walking for 30 minutes a day. My diet made a big factor in it. So I watched what I ate. I ate more healthy. And I made sure that I would get enough rest, especially after having a new baby. And this was my third baby. This wasn't my first baby. So I was used to being up all night breastfeeding and doing all of these things, but I needed that rest, and you can't do it all, so you have to ask for help. So I got rest, I started eating better, and I started drinking more water, and I could find that I started slowly but surely getting back to myself. Do I still suffer from it? Absolutely, but now that I know my triggers, then I can kind of manage it better from there.
And I think the biggest, especially for men don't really want to admit that they are depressed, because if you say you are depressed, it might mean that you're not, you're weak, and I think that is a part of why some men are more prone to commit suicide than women, because we bottle it up, and by the time it comes out, it's already too late. So I think that's part of. I think men need to be informed and be able to recognize when they are depressed and seek for help, and forget about the stigma of whatever anybody is going to think about them, because they need to remember that when they are healthy, their families too are healthy too.
Yeah, so one of the biggest problems that I can see, especially in my line of work, as I work with elderly people mostly, is that usually when you suffer from depression, there is something that leads you to that depression, a kind of a life change, something that happens. And until a few months ago, it was actually not encouraged for people that worked in nursing homes to kind of treat patients for depression, for anxiety, for things like that. Now it's kind of changing a little bit, but we still have a long ways to go. But one thing that I guess the people that made the laws that govern that don't understand is that most of the people that go into nursing homes, most of those people that go there, they're already having the biggest change of their lives because they're leaving their house that they lived for 50 years. They don't have their children around anymore as much, their grandchildren. They don't have their spouse. They don't have so many things that they had before. And that change will definitely cause you to not necessarily have a major depression, but at least to feel that type of depression for a while until you can get used to that new lifestyle.
And anxiety.
And that anxiety because you lost so much in so little time. So that's the problem we have with the treatment, especially in the nursing homes, because not only one treatment is going to work. Not oh, you give medication, the person's going to get better. Not necessarily. There are so many things that are involved on the treatment for depression and anxiety that there's no one answer. You have to involve people. You have to involve medication sometimes. You have to involve pretty much every part of their lives in that treatment.
Yeah. When Gabrielle? Dominique. I'm a mess up names, I'm sorry. But when Gabrielle mentioned that, see,
I'm gonna be Gabby today. It's okay.
the person to my left, when she mentioned that she started doing walking and watching what she was eating, and she mentioned the word triggers, walking, what you eat, those are coping skills. I don't know what you said, what your triggers were, but those are things that people recognize, okay, when I do this, this happens. The coping skills help the symptoms to dissipate, they're not as intense. And the medication enables you to think through things. But a lot of people don't get that. They are afraid of the medication. But if somebody told you was having a heart attack, you take the pill quick. Give it to me, But if somebody tells you you're having a mental health crisis, here's the pill. That's going to make me feel bad. Well, you already feel bad, so why don't you just try this? I tell all my patients, a therapist or a doctor is like a good pair of shoes. You have to find the one that's a good fit for you. And then that person can direct you and help you. But the medication, you don't have to be on it long. Just long enough for you to feel better and start doing things that's going to help you, push you in the right direction so that you can be productive again.
I see that a lot in my area.
Yeah.
That you go talk to the patient like, I think you might be depressed. I think we might need to treat this. No, I'm fine. I don't need anything. But if you tell them like you're having a heart attack, oh yeah, give them the medication.
Well, that plays into, like we talked about before, the stigma against mental health. Even when it's happening to you, sometimes you find it difficult to overcome what you previously thought about. Oh, I'm going to be labeled as some crazy person. Oh, people are going to think, I'm not good for anything. First of all, I don't even know where to find treatment. And there are a lot of barriers, I would say, besides the stigma, to treatment for mental health and I'd like to talk about that a little bit because sometimes people don't know where to go. They don't know what to do. And the different forms of treatment, there's so many. How can we wade through that?
It's a lot. I mean, you have Harris Health here in Houston. You have the Gold Card. It's just a lot. I mean, it just depends on the person's insurance. I mean, there's a lot of roadblocks sometimes in the way. The church would be a good place to help someone to navigate through the system and help them not to give up. You just have to have a buddy. You have to have a partner through this. This is not something someone can do alone.
Right.
Because you need encouragement and support through this. When I don't feel like getting out of bed, I'm gonna need somebody to come and knock on the door and help me. Hey, come on, I can help you through this. Let's get up, let's go. We are interdependent on one another. We're not in this world to be alone. And some people think that. So if I'm suffering from depression and you know this, and you don't come and check on me, you understand what I'm saying? So that's the first thing. If we're here in a church and you know sister so-and-so or brother so-and-so suffering from depression, or she just had a baby and nobody went and checked on her or bought her anything to eat, I noticed that she hadn't been out the house in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, the baby hadn't had his shot. What's going on with her? We need to check on one another, not get in their business, but how you doing? She may tell you, I don't feel good, I need some help here. So that's the first step. And then guide them along the way. I'm sorry.
And then, I think, I was telling my wife, a few weeks ago, there was a lady that was found. She's been dead for 3 years in her house. And nobody checked on her. Nobody did anything. And she was on the bed, dead for 3 years. And so, huh? It's not on, is it not on? She's been dead for 3 years, and she was in her room. Nobody checked on her, and I think that speaks to, as a church, as a community of believers, how we need to check on one another. And just like she said, not get in people's business, but be concerned about them. If you know somebody is not feeling well, call them or talk to somebody to go call them if you can, so that at least we can check on each other. Because when we go through this, when we go through depression, it's not funny. It's not easy. I'm not going to say, let me say this. I was depressed. My wife knows that. There was a time I was depressed. Actually, I was depressed for 5 years. Sometimes she would tell me I'm depressed, and I would tell her, no, I'm not. Nothing's wrong with me. I'm fine. But in my mind, I knew I was, because I was showing symptoms. Sometimes I would not, when she said something, I really didn't care about anything going on with her and the kids. Even though I was functioning, I would go to work and come back. But when I get back home, nothing bothered me. Even if she was dying, I wouldn't say anything. I wouldn't do anything. And so I think it's always good to have someone that cares about you, at least checks up on you. And that's why we have to check. That's part of the reason for doing this program, is to inform ourselves. When you see someone going through certain things, don't see it as a burden. Let's be concerned about one another and check up on one another when we can help it.
So I think that's one of the biggest problems that we have. And I totally disagree with it, because we have this thing about, I don't want to get into other people's business. But as a community, as a family, we are into each other's business. We are each other's business.
Right, exactly.
So if I don't check on my brother, my sister, my friend, just because I don't want to get into their business, there's something wrong with me. Because I should be in their business. They are my business. We have to help one another get through whatever is going on. So we kind of need to take that part out of our minds that, if I go ask, I'm getting into their business. If they don't want into their business, they'll tell you. I would rather go and ask and be turned down than just not ask at all.
Exactly.
If you could introduce yourself, brother.
Oh, you guys don't know me? I'm Elder Charles Johnson, and I apologize for being late, but we had an elders meeting. I just want to say something briefly. Don't lose your point, sister. I want to talk about anxiety. 2/3 of people have depression. Anxiety generally leads to depression. One aspect of anxiety is arousal, which means it puts you on a high alert. And you also feel helpless, whereas with depression, you feel hopeless. And you have excessive worry. We're talking about helping others who have problems with this. If you see somebody who's always worrying about something, that may be a sign. And the last one is fear. I want to address fear from a spiritual perspective. In the Holy Bible that I believe in, 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7 says this: "For God had not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of sound mind." I just came off of a cruise with my wife. I did not want to go. I can't swim. When I was in the 8th grade, I had a chance to learn how to swim. But my father used to always say, if you get in the water, you're going to drown. He was a World War II veteran. He didn't have fear. He was a football player and a boxer. So I don't understand why he put this fear on us. I think other than he loved his children and he just didn't want to see anything happen to us. I think he meant well. But when you tell your children things like that, that fear is like a seed and it grows in you. But this is the point I want to get to. My wife was set on going to this cruise. I had never gone on a cruise. I'd been in water one other time. I went fishing once, and I got motion sickness, and I haven't been back since. But I caught 5 fish, though, so it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. But my wife started calling people. She said, okay, you're not going to go. She said, I'm still going to go. I'm going to call people. See, my wife is very determined. If she's going to do something, you cannot turn her around. So I watched her, and I said, well, she'll give up. It's getting close to that time. And she'll probably say, well, okay, I give up. But she just kept calling. I prayed. See, when I have a problem, first thing I do is I go to God. I found out that always works for me, always, every time, if I go to him first. And the Lord showed me this in my spirit. You're going to miss her because she's going to find somebody and she's going to go on this cruise. Do you want to miss her for 5 nights and 6 days? And in my heart, I said, no, I don't want to miss my wife. I had already told her a week ahead, Dennis, that I was afraid. You know, I'm not one of those kind of men that, I just tell the truth. I'm afraid. That's why I don't want to go. I'm afraid. But when I thought about missing her, I told her, she was standing up there, she didn't know this was coming, and I said, okay, I'll go. She asked me later, why did you change your mind? I said, I just didn't want to miss you. Of course, that touched her heart. My point is this, and somebody said it up here, I think this young lady right here. Whatever is causing you the fear, meet it. Address it. Don't let it overcome you. God didn't give us this. God didn't give you the fear. It came from somewhere else. If you address it, you'll start backtracking and say, okay, where did this start? Oh, this started on this date when I was 12 years old or 13 years old. And then you'll start overcoming it. And so the thing I want to say, if you don't remember nothing I said, is this. Fear is a prerequisite to anxiety and depression. And I believe Satan is behind all of it. Find out what the fear is and why are you fearing it? I used to fear getting on an airplane, Monet. And then one day I heard a beautiful man. Made this statement. He said, people not afraid of flying, they're afraid of dying. And so I said, you know what? That's true. People flying in airplanes every day. I either make it or I don't make it. And I've been flying ever since. So I don't have the fear of flying anymore. You get my point now? If you don't have the fear, you won't feel anxiety. And you won't feel the depression. It's the fear. It's the fear. It's called the I guess I'm saying this right. Am I saying this right? Merck Manual of Medical Information. I want to recommend this, that you get this. It's the Merck Manual of Medical Information.
Brother, that's the thickest book I have seen in a.
And so I still have it. And it's a reference book for me. And you'd be surprised. You read it, it's amazing. It's marvelous. And one other book I want you to get. Ever read Ministry of Healing, because we need healing. All of us. It's something we need healing from. So please get these.
Asking about who you could go to, and a lot of times we forget that your primary care doctor can also help you with your mental illness problems. You go to the doctor if you have a heart attack, or you go to a doctor if you have cancer, but a lot of times we feel like we can't go to the doctor when we're having mental illness or anxiety or depression, and that you absolutely need to utilize their resource, because they can not only help treat you, but they can also refer you to somebody else that is more knowledgeable in that area. So that's what I was going to say.
Right, and you don't have to be I'm not telling you what to do and not do, but the fear of being medicated or over-medicated, which is a very real thing sometimes in our society, you are in charge of your health care. So this morning somebody mentioned, I think that was you, Brother Johnson, you mentioned that when they prescribe you medication, you don't have to take it. Now, far be it from me to tell you not to do what the doctor said, but there are many, many, many treatment options that are available to you. I'm just going to list some, and then we're going to go more in depth with the different specialties that are represented up here and just talk about what are the triggers, the causes, and maybe some of the treatments that pertain to our specific. We have geriatric, we have veterans. I know that, Carla, you deal a lot with veterans, and then mothers, women and children. But some of the different treatments that are available are medications, psychotherapy. They have something called brain stimulation therapies, light therapy, which a lot of us spend a lot of time inside, not moving, not exercising, sitting really still, being on YouTube and all kinds of internet, and not really stimulating our brain in the natural way that we were created to do. So that can come into play. Exercise, alternative therapies like acupuncture, meditation, nutrition. Then you have self-management strategies and education. Managing your time, which helps manage your stress, which is a big source of depression and anxiety. And then mind, body, spirit approaches, and we talk some about that, like meditation, faith, and prayer. So up here we have represented, I know you two gentlemen on the end deal a lot with the geriatric population. Brother Obrima, you deal in healthcare administration, so you're seeing the prevalence in and out, the recurring admissions to the hospital for really a lot of reasons due to depression and anxiety, which manifests itself in different medical conditions. Carla, you deal with the veterans population, and you deal with women and children, especially through your own experience. So if you guys could just give us a picture of what it looks like for your specific population. What are some of the triggers? What are some of the symptoms? And then how can those people specifically find some kind of relief for what they're going through? I don't know who wants to jump in the boat first.
Well, one is the process of aging. Everything is diminishing. And I guess I'm going through a little of that myself now. But everything is diminishing. In our population, we have like 80-year-olds, 90-year-olds. And you're losing control of yourself. You're losing control. You have a lot of involuntary things going on in your body. And you really have to know how to deal with people that have those issues, because what's on the surface is not really what the problem may be. And a lot of them are on medications for depression. You have anti-anxiety medications, you have antidepressant medications. Mostly the antidepressants try to affect your serotonin, which is your feel-good chemical in your body. Everybody loves serotonin. But a lot of them, they don't have it. And if you look at the physical aspect of it, 2 minutes? Oh, thank you. You have to set limits on me. And so that's it. And anti-anxiety is just what it is. They're given medications to kind of calm them down and be sometimes a little lethargic. But that's what we deal with in that population.
Usually in the elderly population, we do have the problem with the medication maybe, I guess, working too much sometimes will make them lethargic and things like that. So usually with the treatment that we start, there are so many treatments you can do, but usually we do start with some sort of medication to see if that's going to help. With psychotherapy as well, we are blessed now that we do have a team of psychologists and a psychiatrist that come to the building pretty much every day. We have a psychologist in the building talking to these people and kind of trying to help them deal with whatever they're going through. And also we always encourage the family to come and visit more often, for them to go home and visit every once in a while, because a lot of people see that when I go to a nursing home, when I go to assisted living, things like that, that I'm going there to die and I cannot leave, which is not true anymore. Before it was kind of like that because of the way insurances work. They couldn't leave for so long. It was a mess. Now it's getting a little better. I think we still have ways to go, but it's getting a little better where they can leave a little more. They can go out, they can have fun and come back, and it's not a problem with if you're out for past midnight today, then your insurance is not going to cover you anymore. So it's kind of helping a little bit. Yes, definitely. And then we do outings, and we encourage them. Now, you can never force someone to do it, but you can always try to encourage them as much as you can by either getting someone that they trust, because usually, as I said, I've been in the nursing business, in the nursing home business for the past 15 years, and when you work in a nursing home, you do become their friends, you become their family, because a lot of them, they won't have a lot of family they'll come by. A lot of them won't have family at all they'll come by. I have 114 patients as of today, and about 20 of those patients, I don't even know who their families are. So we become their families. They trust you. So if you develop that relationship with them, and it's the same thing here in our community. If you develop that relationship with people, you can always help them. They will always be welcoming to your suggestion. They will always be welcoming to what you try to do for them. But we have to develop that relationship with them.
As far as the veterans with depression and anxiety, most of them have the diagnosis of PTSD, and some of them may just have depression or anxiety. It just depends. We do individual and group and family sessions. Sometimes we do the evidence-based treatments, which is cognitive processing therapy, or cognitive behavior therapy, cognitive behavior therapy for insomnia. So it's various forms of treatment that we do. We also have outdoor experiences, so that to help them, because those are the type of treatments, but we also have outdoor therapy, meaning they go outdoors, because part of PTSD is isolation. So we get them around other people, other veterans, and they go horseback riding and things like that, because the vitamin D and out in the sun and all that, that's a part of treatment too. So there's various forms of therapy, whichever one fits that particular veteran or that particular person, because every form of treatment may not work for everyone. And also there's prolonged exposure therapy. That's not my favorite one, but that's one. There's also EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization rapid movement, where you sort of like this, like, when they do the piano thing, so yeah, that one, that's another one. And so, like I said, there's various forms of therapy, but it just depends on the individual and what works for them, because every form of therapy may not work for that particular individual. But I like to go back with y'all men names, but the one on the end, he mentioned fear. My definition for fear is false evidence appearing real. So that's my definition for fear, and that's what I tell my clients. When you say meet it, just remember it's false evidence appearing real. And so a lot of us, as far as when spirituality in church, just because you have anxiety and depression does not make you less of a Christian. Just because I can make it to the edge of the water and you back there and you're right there suffering with fear and anxiety, Jesus came for all of us. So just because I'm a little closer to the edge and you're right back there behind me, we both are going to make it into heaven, okay? Right. So don't let the fact that you suffer from depression, anxiety, PTSD, bipolar, schizophrenia, it doesn't matter. He came to save us all. So just because you have mental health, you don't have to tell nobody. Just take your medicine and do what your doctor said. You're going to be fine. Do your coping skills. Do your exercise. It's your whole mind, body, and soul. Take care of your head, from the top of your head to the bottom of your toes. Do what your doctor says. Do what your pastor says. And you're going to be fine. But if you neglect one part of your body, if you neglect your spirituality, you're going to suffer. If you neglect your exercise, you're going to suffer. You know? So you have to take care of your head to your feet. And don't forget your soul. Don't forget the Holy Spirit, because it dwells inside of us. And that anxiety and that fear and that depression, it attacks that spirit. And we got to protect it. So that's it.
All right, preacher. Can I say something? I want to say something real fast. I appreciate that, sister.
Yes, sir.
What if? We got to stay away from those what ifs. You know, you see this pretty girl and you these young men here and she's beautiful. Inside, outside. First thing you say is, what if she don't like me? That's not realistic. How do you know? Stay away from what ifs. You want to become a nurse practitioner. Then you say to yourself, what if I don't make the test? What if I don't pass? That's not realistic. Stay away from what if. And just go ahead and do it. Because what if can keep you locked in the house and you'll never go out. Trust God. Know that He loves you and He wants you to prosper. He wants you to be successful. So take what if out of your vocabulary. Take it out.
So we're going to let Dominique talk to us about how depression and anxiety can impact women and, with children, and also single women. And then after that, we're going to take some questions from the audience. If you guys have any questions for the panel or for any one individual, we can take your questions at that time.
For our mothers, my most important point is when you go back for your checkup with your doctor, or even when you take that baby to that first doctor's appointment, they give you a questionnaire and you have questions on there and you're supposed to check yes or no how you're feeling. Be honest. I realized after the third baby that I had postpartum anxiety and postpartum depression. But when I look back on it, I had it with baby number 1 and baby number 2, and I lied on the paper. I will be okay. That's not a big deal. I'll get over it. No, you won't. You need to talk to somebody, and you need to be honest on that paper, because that is where your healing begins. So make sure that you are talking honestly with your doctor, because I told my doctor both times, oh, I'm fine. Oh, I'm great. I feel great. I was not. So be honest about those questions. Also, surround yourself with moms. Mom's Night Out is my best friend, and I make sure that I make time for them, because sometimes when you have your children, you get so caught up in even just married life that, oh, well, we have something to do, or who's going to watch the kids, or make sure you get that time for you. So Mom's Night Out is a big thing, and I schedule it on the calendar. We schedule it on our calendar like it's a business meeting, because it's important and it's needed. Make sure that you don't lose yourself in your friendships that you had before, because life gets busy. You have all these things to do. And sometimes you just want to rest. Make sure you get your rest, but make sure you have that time for you. I've implemented for myself Self-Care Sunday. So every Sunday, I make sure that I do something for myself. something for me that's going to make me happy, whether it's 30 minutes in my room alone, if I'm going to get my eyebrows done, if I'm going to the grocery store by myself because I don't have children asking me what they want. It is for me. And I also encourage it for my husband too, because a lot of times the men get left out. So make sure your husband or your spouse or whomever has that time alone too to regroup themselves, because if you're not fueling yourself, you're actually pushing that off onto your children. I realized that my 3-year-old was kind of having anxiety because he was watching me have anxiety for so long. And so he started kind of having these symptoms of anxiety because I'm rushing. I'm spending so much time rushing, trying to get everybody out the house, that now I'm yelling at everybody. So don't rush. Take your time and schedule routines for yourself and your children. Once you get your kids into a routine, everything flows like butter. And when you're living in chaos, your children are picking up on that chaos as well. So make sure that every morning you're doing the same thing. Every night you're doing the same thing. So that way they get into habits, and this is who they become as adults, and it's important. So schedule your self-time and make sure you are honest at your doctor's appointments, and make sure that you take your time with everything you do, because you'll get caught up in all of the rushing and it's not that important. If you get somewhere 5 minutes late, 10 minutes late, 30 minutes late, you made it and everybody's alive. Just take that time.
Thank you so much for that. I'm going to ask, Jared, could you come up and help with handing the mics? Do you mind giving the mics to people who are asking questions? And we're going to have 2 mics, I think. We can do 2 mics. And while we're doing that, if anyone has a question, just raise your hand. From the healthcare side of things, I totally hear what you're saying, because we have to, for the outpatient, we do also service. I'm a social worker as well, and so they call us to talk to the mothers who have scored high on the depression scale. So that questionnaire, and I do see people lie on that, and because I've been doing it for so long, you talk to somebody a little bit, you can tell, you're like, okay, I know what you put on this paper, but how are you really feeling? What are some of your stressors? And sometimes you can't even say, are you having depression? Because people have such a mental block. You have to go around the back door, like, okay, how is it with your husband? Or, how are you doing with your children? You just got to kind of engage them in different ways. And people know when something's wrong. But like you said, that they're in the zone. You're like, if I just keep muscling through, I'll be okay eventually. And you're right. No, you're not. No, you're not. Not unless something drastically changes for you. Yes, we had a question over here.
What do you do if your trigger is a person you know? Your trigger is a person you know. Like,
What do you do if your trigger is a person that you know?
yes.
Trigger for depression or anxiety?
Depression. Or both, actually. Both.
Is a person friend of family or friend? Is it a relative or non-relative?
Let's say it's a relative.
Well, then, if that person's, I'm just laughing because I'm just transparent. But anyway, if it's a relative, I would say first of all, if it's a parent, first of all, you sit the parent down, and you talk to them, and then have that discussion. Second, if it's a distant relative, still call your parent in and talk with the parent, and then explain to your parent why that person is a trigger for you. Then you let your parent intercede for you. And if that relative happens to be, then you put it in the hand of your parent, who's your protector.
What if the relative is a peer?
If the relative, then it's still in the realm of a parent, because if that person is a trigger for you, the parent role is to be the protector. And then the parent has to protect the child, so that, because if it comes to the point to that child is depression, then something's seriously wrong in that relationship. And it's something for the parent and the other parent to figure out what's going on. Even if you just have a group meeting with the 2 parents and the 2 children to find out what's going on. That would be my recommendation.
Well, usually if it's a person that's causing you anxiety, there's something that either happened or that you're afraid of happening. So whatever that something is has to be addressed. Otherwise, that will never change. So you kind of have to figure out
the stigma. So my question is, how can we as a community really get past that stigma out of their closet and get the necessary help that they need? Another thing in relation to what you said about the female, one thing I would advise also as females, I'm a nurse practitioner, when you go for your postpartum examination or visit, go by yourself. Because one thing that I have seen in my practice is that they have the fear of saying exactly how they feel because their partner is there. So go by yourself, and it'll be you and the provider in the exam room so that you can be free to say exactly how you feel so that you don't lie on that paper. So my question is, how do we get past that stigma?
So,
Oh, I'm sorry. I just want to. She said she was by herself and she was still lying.
Not yet.
But I know for me personally, just as a social worker, whenever I talk to people, because part of our daily assessment that we do involves, feelings and things like that, I make it a point if I'm going to talk to anybody about depression, anxiety, things like that, I ask to be by themselves. I make up some professional excuse, I usually do this part alone. It matters to talk to people by themselves.
the biggest problem usually is because they are afraid of being judged. So, and I've seen that a lot, and unfortunately, I've done that too. When people come to you and they say, I don't feel well. I think there's something wrong." And be like, "You'll be okay." So, when people come to you, the only way to make them feel more comfortable is treat whatever they are feeling as if it was real, as if, okay, so what can I do to help? Tell me more about how you're feeling. What brought you to this position? But that's the biggest problem, because usually we're very good in judging people. We're very good about that because we always want to see in our perspective. So you have to try to see it in their perspective because, again, their fear for them is real.
True.
So you have to kind of help them see that it's not real. But for them, it is the most real thing they have.
And I think one of the ways is what we're doing right now, is getting people educated so that you are informed. So when somebody comes and tell you that they are not feeling somehow, rather than tell them to go away or that you will pray for them, which is a good thing, you also find out, you listen, you talk with them, and you try to be their friend, and then you can better appreciate where they're coming from and help them to where they need to be. You might not be able to help them personally, but you can direct them to resources that are available. They can talk to a doctor, they can talk to their pastor, they can seek for professional help and all that. So part of what we're doing now is to help so that after this program, some of us are better informed. So when we talk to somebody outside, we're at work, our colleagues come to talk to us, or they're feeling somewhere, you can understand. If you are in administration, one of your workers, one of your employees come talk to you that they are not feeling well, or they just don't, they are not happy here at work. You don't tell them, oh, you know what, maybe you need to go get another job. You find out what's going on, because in helping them, you've saved not just one person, you saved a family, and you saved a few things.
He said something very interesting. Praying for them always help, but only praying doesn't help. You have to pray, and you have to show them that you are interested. Because if you pray and you never go talk to them, it doesn't make any difference for them. They have to actually know that you are praying for them, that you are there for them if they need you.
I think as far as the stigma, our society, the United States as a whole, the mental health has to become important. So the stigma is going to always be there. But in our circle, in our community, if we go out and reach and pray and show support, put actions behind our words, that would help with the stigma. And even I myself, each therapist is supposed to have a therapist. I don't have a therapist. I'm supposed to have a therapist. I need to go find a therapist. But I talk to my coworkers and everything, so we each other's therapists. But I do need my own therapist. So that's a stigma right there. But the thing is, I went to my church after Hurricane Harvey, and I lost the car, and I got home from work and I sat on the couch. I got home from work and I sat on the couch. I got home from work and I sat on the couch. 25 pounds later, I was like, whoops, I'm depressed. I went to the church and I said, y'all, I'm depressed. And they prayed for me. That was about it. But I think the thing is, I realized I didn't have my coping skills. I wasn't going to the gym every day after work like I was doing. My world had changed because of the hurricane. My car was missing. So I couldn't do what I was used to doing. So something in my world was gone. So I had to fix it, you know? So you said 5 years later for you, so 3-4 years later, now I'm back doing what I was doing. I had knee surgery too. So life events changes you. You know, major life events, surgeries, babies, those things like that, divorces, those things change you. Hurricanes, those things change you. So stigma will come with those things. So y'all just be careful when y'all know someone has major life events or changes, watch out, because they're not going to reach out. You have to reach into them. That's it.
I think the biggest part about breaking that stigma is speaking out on it, or even if you don't suffer for it for yourself, then if you know somebody, so saying, hey man, I know somebody that's dealing with anxiety, or for myself, when I'm dealing with an anxiety attack and I'm around my coworkers or whomever, I'm like, hey y'all, I'm having anxiety, I need about 10 minutes, and just being honest about it, you'll be surprised who will open up to you just by you opening up to them. And then you guys can be listening ears for each other, because sometimes if you just talk it out with somebody else, that helps a lot. So just being honest with yourself, or just saying it out loud, man, I'm having an anxiety attack, or man, I'm not feeling that great today, that may do wonders for somebody else, because now they feel free to be honest with you about what's going on with them.
Yeah. And one other thing too, know your emotions. Sometimes me and my husband, we had to figure out, what's wrong with you? Have you ate today? Did you skip breakfast? Oh yeah. You need to go eat because you're real irritable. You understand what I'm saying? Hangry. So you got to realize, if you haven't ate, you're irritable, you're depressed, you know? Huh?
You're not you when you're hungry.
Yeah, you're not you when you're hungry. You're not you when you haven't went to the gym. That's me. You know, you're not you if you haven't went to work. You're not you if you hadn't had a vacation. So recognize your emotions. When someone says, how you feel today? I'm good. No, that's good is not an emotion. Okay? Well, how do you feel today? I'm sad. What's going on? How you feel today? I'm happy. Oh, that don't need nothing. But what's going on? You happy? Oh, it's my birthday's in 3 days. Oh, okay. You know? So when someone says, how you feeling today? Don't let them get off with just saying good. You know, give me an emotional word. Teach your children emotional words. You know, so that you can really understand how they feel. And remember, good is not an emotional word. It is not. Okay, I'm through.
And one important thing also is, if someone comes and open up to you that they're feeling depressed, that they're having anxiety, and you don't feel like you have the capacity to help, get someone that can help you with that. Because if you don't help and they only opened up to you, it's not going to change anything to them. So you also have to have that mind that if I can't help, if I don't know what to do, if I'm lost, I can go to someone else that can help me. They don't necessarily have to be there with you, but they can guide you on what you have to do to help that person.
Do we have any other questions? We have one on the other side.
That question is in response to this young lady there that didn't say if it's in the family. What if you're dealing with a person who's never wrong, never done anything wrong? What if you're dealing with someone like that?
I think your question for us is, what if you're dealing with somebody who is
Who
never
thinks
wrong?
that they're never wrong. No matter what they do, they're never wrong.
I mean, congratulations to them. I mean, honestly, boundaries, yeah.
Boundaries.
Okay.
But just like she said, boundaries. You know, if you already know that person's, why are you gonna boundaries?
You might not have to engage them.
Yeah, you might not have to engage them if you Boundaries. That's the only word I can think. My husband has a friend. He is next to Jesus when he wrote the Bible. So I try not to ask him a spiritual question because I know he will disagree with me. So I just don't engage him. I really don't. So if you have someone that's never wrong, try boundaries, because why are you going to waste time arguing with him when you know that the outcome of the conversation is going to be wrong? You're going to be wrong. Now, if that person's your husband or something, that's a different story.
Therapy. Well,
What if that person is you?
And what if that person?
What if that person is you?
You know, they probably need to go get into counseling.
Counseling, maybe.
Counseling would be the answer.
I think it's always good to talk it out. Get a third party. Get a third party. If it's
Yeah,
your
third party, yeah.
get someone that can mediate, that can help.
Yes, yes.
Not necessarily make the person feel that they are wrong, but
Yes,
make
yes.
them understand the other person's perspective. You may not agree, but you understand where they're coming from. So I think it's always good. Now, if your spouses, good luck on that one. You do have to pray hard on that one. But
Yeah.
but I think you can always get a third party, get a pastor involved. You know what?
Yeah.
My husband is just difficult. Can you turn in sometimes?
If it's a spouse, it becomes a bigger issue. It will be a lot harder to deal with. But again, yeah, you kind of have to try to get somebody to help, because usually by yourself you're not going to be able to help that person. Sometimes they have to see someone from the outside. Yeah, and it could be narcissism.
Yeah.
So
Family
that person
therapy.
might actually need professional help.
Yeah. Let's not throw out terms. Family therapy is the word.
All right.
Forget he said
Let's
narcissism. Let's not diagnose. Family therapy. Yes.
All right.
That's the word.
And I know we're throwing around the word boundaries a lot. And sometimes I feel like boundaries can be sometimes a dirty word with people, because they envision this wall. You know, boundary means a wall, and nobody can get past my wall. And if people get past my wall, then it's all over. No, boundaries are simply guidelines. Sometimes guidelines can be bent, sometimes guidelines can be taken back, and they can be reset. Boundaries don't have to be a hard and fast, oh, that person aggravates me, so I'm never going to talk to them. That's not necessarily a boundary. That's you reacting to a trigger, really. A boundary is you doing a lot of self-evaluation and saying, what am I able to do safely, peacefully, in good conscience? That's a boundary.
All right. What I'm able to gather from all this now is that anxiety and depression, they are all life challenges, right? No. I used to have a church member back home. He was duped, a large sum of money, and he never said anything. Like you guys have rightly said, that's a man for you. They want to handle themselves, right? And nobody noticed anything. And we were worshiping the church, we gist after church. Nobody noticed anything until when it was done that he was really sick. Before, in 2 days, he passed away. So the question now is, now, for the ones you know that has a problem, you can go ahead and provide solution, right? But for the ones you don't know, what are the symptoms, that we can look for? Thank you.
I think we've become very mechanical when we come to church. We come, we sing, we pray, we listen to the pastor, we leave. And that's what we do all the time. We kind of lost the connection, the meaning of what church actually is. We're not here just to come and listen to the pastor, sing a song, get on our knees, pray, go home, feel good about ourselves. No, we are an actual community. So, depending on the size of the church, there's no way you're going to know everybody. It's not going to happen because some churches are very big. There's no way you're going to know everybody. But there should be someone you know that knows that knows everybody in the church or that knows part of the church. So between, I would say, 7 people in the church, you should know everybody in the church. So you kind of have to talk to people to see if they noticing anything different with someone else. Like as somebody said up here, that person kind of stopped coming to church, or that person always sat in the front, now they're always sitting in the back. Pretty much any change in routine, any change in their life in the community here, at home, in your neighborhood, if they change, you see somebody walking every day at the same time, and for a week they're not there. Something changed. So you kind of, and it's not easy to notice those changes. It's not very easy, but you kind of have to keep an eye to see what's changing around you, what the people around you are doing as well.
And I think sometimes, not sometimes, the Holy Spirit can prompt you to talk to someone. And when the Holy Spirit prompts you, you need to respond. Because I think we lose each other when we are prompted by the Holy Spirit to approach certain people, and we say, "Oh, I don't know the person. Why?" But when the Holy Spirit tells you, because God uses us to minister to others, and sometimes, most times, we do not listen. And for example, there is a young man that committed suicide in one of our churches, and the church was upset. And the question is, nobody knew that the guy was going through anything. But then when the guy died, after he had committed suicide, a few weeks after, some members in the church were prompted by the Spirit to go talk to him, but they did not. Because they didn't feel that they were close enough to him. He was going to get upset. But guess what? If they had, maybe the guy would be alive. So for all of us, if you are prompted by the Holy Spirit to talk to someone, to go encourage somebody, go do that. Don't wait till it's too late.
And we're about to close, so if anybody has any additional questions, we can take 1 or 2 more. We have a program at 4 o'clock, our AY program, and so we encourage everyone to come out and participate with that. I would like to be very, 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 very concrete. I don't know how well received, but let's go for it, right? There is no possible way for us to take care of each other once a week, period. Church is there. Church will, march on till the end of time till we can't keep church anymore. There's no way for us to know each other once a week. I have a great relationship with my football team, none of which keep same church with me. A lot of them are Christian. Some of them are not Christian. Their habits might differ from mine, but we are friends. We talk about things deeply, and I see them twice a week for several hours at a time. If we are going to be it's the beginning of a new year, let's set some new habits for our interpersonal relationships. If we are going to be intentional about taking care of the people around us, let's be intentional about being proactive with those relationships. Let's intentionally seek out to make time for other people outside of what we normally might have done. Because there is no way you're going to build a relationship enough to the point where you're going to see if somebody's coming into a crisis. They won't say, just like you said, they won't say. Because when I get in a problem, I'm all in here, and I'm mulling, and I'm devising, and I'm analyzing, and I'm thinking. In my head, sorry. And I'm just going over and over and over, and the end result of what I do or say might be the result of who knows how long I've been thinking about that problem. You have people in your life who are in crisis, and unless your relationship with them is such that you can come up to them and say, I've noticed that, you used to do this, and you don't do that anymore. Are you okay? And they might say, oh, yes, I just had a change in my work schedule. Or they might say, hem and haw, and then you can go deeper. But if you don't have that relationship with people, there's no way that you could pick out, who's going to need your help, even if it's just somebody to talk to. So my whole concrete point is, let's be intentional about spending time with people outside of, this is for us, church family. Let's be intentional about spending time with each other outside of church. Church is going to happen. Church is like, that's the bottom level. You're not even trying to show up and interact with people. That just happens. You have to be more intentional in interacting with others.
I think she has spoken she has spoken, and I think the biggest thing is making time. All of us are too busy with all this stuff, and we forget that when it's all said and done, God wants us to connect with one another, to help each other, to encourage one another, to build each other up. And if we don't spend time with one another, there is no way. And that's why we are not connecting. Because people are going through challenges in this church. But many of us don't know because we are not connecting. We see each other every Sabbath. It's Happy Sabbath. There's nothing wrong with that. I think it's a beautiful thing. But we are not connecting to get to know. And some people are afraid too, because if they do share their true emotion, some people might get upset. But we must be mature enough to respect everybody's opinion. You may not agree with it, but you understand where they're coming from, and we can help each other as we do that.
I heard the pastor say one thing one time that kind of caught my attention, that salvation is individual, but the way it never is.
Open that up.
Oh, yeah. One more.
Yeah, so
Yes,
the
one more.
Yeah, go ahead.
go ahead.
What was the question?
Okay, I think we have time for two more. We had somebody over here. Yeah, we had to.
Hello? Yes. I would like, if you can go a little bit deeper. I mean, you've mentioned about coping skills, building coping skills in the people that are suffering depression. And I would like to see about addressing, if you can go a little bit deeper into skills, mental skills, attitude skills that people that are going through depression, that it can help them to come out of that state, you know? Like, for example, I'll just give an example. For example, some people have the attitude, I had that attitude, I still tend to have that attitude, to be like the turkey that puts the head under the ground when, under the ground when there are problems around, I mean, that's just a small example, just simple things that can help people that are suffering depression cope mentally with having positive attitudes or whatever it is that can help them cope. Can you go deeper into that a little bit?
I can give one. For me, I'm actually really pessimistic in my thinking, very, very often. And sometimes I come off as really bubbly, but that's probably because I'm an oldest child. Oldest children, they're used to performing and everything has to be perfect. And so, but in my head, I actually have just this, or I should say had, praise the Lord, just this negative loop running. Everything I did wasn't good enough. I would talk down to myself. And so I found that for me, a really good coping mechanism was positive affirmation. When somebody would praise me, I would say, thank you, God, for whatever it was. Finding promises in the Bible and putting my name in it actually helps me, because then later when I think of it, my name is there and I say, okay, well, that's for me, whereas before my thought process would be, oh, I'm bad at this, oh, I could never, oh, this is going horribly. One of my favorite things to say when something goes wrong would be, oh, great. But one of my favorite hymns is Great is Thy Faithfulness, which really makes me feel happy. So in my head, I set up consciously this thing where whenever I would say, oh, great is Thy faithfulness, like kind of in my head turning around my language to be positive instead of negative. It takes practice, but for me, it's worked.
Journaling is a good thing to do. To get all that negativity out of your head and write it down on paper. And one time I was going through something, I was just writing. And then when I was in a better mindset, I was reading it and I was like, ew, whoa, And then it's good to go back and just realize, ooh, I've come very far. But journaling is a good thing to write to help you to come out Just get that out of your head and down on paper. Because if you keep it all in your head, you can't sleep, you can't think. But take it out of your head, put it on paper, and say, I'll worry about it later. And that sometimes will help.
And I think part of also exercise is very important, coping, and sometimes talking it out. But you must have a buddy, somebody that holds that you think can hold you accountable. If you have someone that can hold you accountable, you can discuss with them. You can, you know what, this is going on with me, and you can bounce thoughts together, ideas together, and they can challenge you and speak the truth. And especially, we need to have people that speak the truth to us. We should not have a lot of people that just encourage us to be depressed, but rather than, well, we need people that can challenge us. Say, oh, you know what?
Yeah.
Let's go through this together. I can help you. We can do all this, and you can be better. So I think that is also important too as well.
For myself, a good coping mechanism is my accountability partner and we create goals for the week. So if I'm having a bad week and I just don't want to get out of bed, well, I got to complete these goals. So that helps me kind of push through my week. So on Sunday, we text each other, okay, these are our goals for a week. And then on Wednesday or sometime during the week, we'll check on each other and say, okay, how you coming with your goals? Okay, how can I help you accomplish this goal? Or what can you do better tomorrow that will help you accomplish that goal? So, and I have days where I'm like, man, I really don't want to do anything, but I got to get that goal done, and I don't want to let myself down, and I don't want to let my partner down. So I create those goals, and I try to accomplish them by Friday or so. So that really helps.
Yeah, it kind of really depends on what the person likes to do as well. That's why it's so important to have somebody with you, because they can always push you to do those things. Like if I'm feeling down, for me, I go bowling, and it makes me feel better. So it really depends on what the person likes to do as well.
And Dennis, I was about to touch on that. I'm sorry, sister, I'll be brief. I was about to touch on that. I have found that a great source of my stress sometimes is that I am not engaging in some of my hobbies that bring me immense peace of mind. You know, crochet, painting, going out with my dog somewhere. If I'm not working those into my schedule intentionally, I've found that I'll be 2-3 weeks in and just, you know, your whole angry brow, you know, you're scowling at everybody because you haven't created that place of peace. So making an intentional place of mental peace in your day, your week, will go a long way to helping maintain some of that even keel. And I think we have one more question.
I just want to respond. Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to respond to the thought of us never being able to see everybody or know what's going on with people because we meet once a week and we're only about singing, praying, and going home. But the Bible does give some indication as to what our duty is as Christians. It said we are our brother's keepers. So if I'm my brother's keeper, if someone is here and not, you know, acting the way I know they usually act, I can pray and ask God to show me how I can get around this. God is going to do anything, answer any prayer that has to do with someone's salvation. True. And their physical well-being. We can also keep a mental check. When I'm praying, I usually say, God, who was not at church this week? Or who is going through something that I missed? Believe you, he'll bring the name. I will get the name. The other thing, Jesus also said, watch and pray. And most times we think it's like, oh, watching for the signs of the world to know when it's... No, watch and pray means watch and pray. You come to church, you watch. I ask God for eyes when I'm coming to church. God, let me be a blessing. I'm not only going there for a blessing. I want to be a blessing. So I will come to church and I look around and I'm like, okay, let me see who is looking like everything is not going well. And if we watch and pray, God will show us, you know, this person is having something going on. And I remember a situation, we always laugh about it. This young woman was going through a separation, lots of abuse, domestic abuse. And she would come to church and put on a nice smile. And I watched her 1 week and I watched her 2 weeks. The third week, how are you doing? Happy Sabbath, everything is going good. Da, 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 da. And I said, come over here. And I pulled her aside and I said, everything is not going well. I said, I have been praying and everything is not going well. what's going on. And she opened up this whole bundle of stuff. And God was able to use me to help her get out of that stuff. So, like you said, we have to be intentional about people, because Jesus was going down one way and someone was calling over here, and he could have said, "Oh man, let me go finish my agenda here. I'll come back and take care of you." No, he made the 360 and he came back and attended to what the cry was. So as Christians, we've got to come out of, I came to church, I'm going to sit in this same seat every single week because I don't care about what's happening in that row over there at that. If you ever know me, I sit in every Sabbath school class all the time because I'm watching. I'm looking, I'm listening to hear if there's someone who needs my prayers, who needs my encouragement. So may God help us to grow in 2020 and become the Christians, who are nurturing, who are encouraging, and who are loving. Because by our love, that's how people know we're his disciples.
Thank you so much. I want to thank everyone for coming out and for the pan. There's another question? All right, okay. All right. Who has a question? Okay, one of them has a last question.
Sorry, excuse me.
I'm a student, and a lot of what I see in school is mostly just like, a lot of people do suffer from depression, but mostly panic attacks because we work a lot and we don't really take time for ourselves. So how do you deal with someone who has like panic attacks in class? Yes. Like it's not very like audible, but and they've told you that they're having panic attacks in class.
I guess a couple things. If you're dealing with somebody who, and you could probably speak to this as well, I don't know what would work in your situation, but if you know the person well enough and they're having an active panic attack right there in your face, it might help to come alongside them, and you might have to guide them in either breathing or in counting, something to get them to not focus on what is being a trigger to them right at that second. You could have them talk it out to you in that moment. You could also ask if they can be excused. If it's possible for them to leave the room and come back, you could go with them and kind of, do a session with them in the hallway, hold my hand, all right, count with me, okay, we're gonna breathe in, we're gonna breathe out, we're gonna breathe in, we're gonna breathe out, and in about 30 seconds, you're not going to feel the same. You have to constantly reinforce to them that it is something temporary that will pass.
And also you can have them do the colors of the rainbow. What you want them to do is calm down.
Focus on something else.
Focus on something else. Have them to calm down. But anytime something happens in school, you have to let the teachers know. Go to the counselor's office because you don't want to be responsible for anything else to happen to that student. And I know kids want to keep kids between kids, but you must let an adult know, because if kids are working and kids are doing school stuff, again, we got to take time for peace. Even children need time for peace and play. So if kids are just working and doing school, you have to have all the pieces of the pie. Play, work, school, fun. All of that has to be in there. So you got to have a piece of the pie. You got to have some downtime. So again, if something happens at school, calm them down, focus on something else, get to the counselor's office, who will talk to the teachers, who will notify the parents, because that is out of your control.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We want to thank members of the panel for taking the time out to share this wonderful information. And I hope all of us have been blessed by this discussion today. We'll definitely continue with some of this discussion. We are going to have another session in the next 2 months on this again, dealing with something part of it also, because we know that we can never exhaust everything. We've not exhausted half of what when it comes to depression and anxiety. There are different kinds of, there is people that are bipolar, schizophrenic, and all that we've not. And the interesting part of it is some of us suffer from that, from all those things. So we need to continue to encourage one another and build each other up. Like my sister said, we need to get to know each other better and become brothers and sisters indeed. Now, on behalf of Sabbath School, I do want to say thank you. So, can you come forward with the? So, I want to say thank you for all of you participating in this panel. This is my website here. So, since she said it, I said, okay, right on, we're just going to have to do it. So, it's something small. So, thank you so much for being part of this panel. I hope